Welcome, everyone, to today's information session for the Master of Science in Healthcare Leadership from Brown University School of Professional Studies. This program is jointly offered between the School of Professional Studies and the School of Public Health. Today's session is about return on investment, as well as some of the application process and application tips for the program. So thank you so much for joining today, and I look forward to hearing your questions. My name is Sandi Ferretti, and I'm the program director for this Master of Science in Healthcare Leadership program. I've been at Brown for 10 years and have always been involved in this program, so I have a good sense of the history and types of students who engage in the program and can answer lots of questions about the program. So thanks for joining today. And I ask that you put your any questions that you have as we're going along in the Q&A function on your webinar screen, and we will hold all those questions until the end, but you're welcome to put your questions into that Q&A function at any point during the session so that you don't forget what they are as we're going along. So that will help expedite things very well. So. All right, let's talk about return on investment. Healthcare is a really challenging place, particularly in the last few years. Although in the 30 years that I've been in healthcare, I would say it's always been a challenging place. And so as you're thinking about your own career and your own process for engaging in your career, one of the things to think about when you're thinking about investing in yourself is what's your why? What are you really after? What do you want to achieve? And what will it take to get there? How are you going to get there? And are there additional skills or knowledge that you need to work on, develop, or acquire to be able to grow into those roles that you aspire to? So return on investment for education is a little bit tricky to define. In the business context, return on investment has a real dollars and cents kind of definition, and that's the profit that is generated by a business entity divided by the cost of delivering that product or service. And investors look to see what that return on investment is for a particular product or service. In education, we think about return on investment in terms of what is the advantage or gain in lifetime earnings, so over more than one particular year, compared to the tuition investment that you are making and the time commitment that you are making to engage in a program. So in addition, very difficult for universities and programs to get specific salary information from folks, particularly after graduation. So we look at ROI a little bit differently when it comes to our alumni. So we have been looking at some data recently, and for our first 8 cohorts of students, we used that data because all of those students are at least 3 years post-graduation, and we look at them at that three-year point. Where have you risen to 3 years after graduation? So for this purpose, for our presentation today, I looked at 3 aspects. Where are people rising to that C-suite executive suite setting in healthcare? And almost 50% of our graduates hold vice president or C-suite or business owner titles within 3 years of graduation. My caveat there is that note that 25% of them start the program with those titles. So going from 25 to 48%, that's kind of a doubling in the number of folks who rise to that C-suite level. Next is kind of that leap to vice president. Many of our students are more mid-career and are thinking about how do I achieve that next level. And after the program, almost 50% of our students who are what I would call multifunctional managers, so they have more than one functional department or service or aspect reporting to them, are promoted to that vice president or C-suite role within 3 years of graduation. And then thinking in terms of that early to mid-career person, thinking about widening your span of control. So folks who start the program either as individual contributors or as managers of singular functions or departments. 46%, almost 50% of our graduates that have non-manager titles or manager titles are promoted to lead functional teams within multifunctional teams within 3 years of graduation. So we've seen some very good results from our program in terms of folks, their ability to navigate higher career levels as a result of the program. But it's more than just a financial gain or the title, the position gain. It's really the gain of a network of peers. We have over 200 alumni who form a robust network of folks who continue to engage with our program. It allows you to have a network of peers. The program is designed in such a way that you interact with three different intakes of students. So you get an overlap of folks and get to expand that network. For folks who are thinking about a career pivot, the program really enables folks to have a much broader sense of healthcare knowledge across the healthcare industry and allows people to think about a career pivot. Specifically, our program focuses on leadership skill development and provides leadership coaching for you and really provides that foundation of knowledge that broadens your capabilities to excel at higher levels of the organization. So let's go through some specific examples. You might be saying, Sandy, what do people actually do with the degree? So here's some clinical leaders and their examples of roles that they've taken on. So first is a gentleman who was an ophthalmologist, a practicing ophthalmologist and surgeon in private practice. And he is now the founding assistant dean for clinical education at a brand new starting up medical school. We have a person who was chief of women and children's service line of a large multi-specialty group practice. And she's now the chief medical officer for the whole South region for her organization. We've had folks, clinical folks who make that pivot. So someone who was a maternal child health fellow while she was in the program has decided to go the public health and public administration route. And so she's an associate medical director in New York State's Department of Public Health. We had a practicing nephrologist in the program, and he wanted to make a complete pivot away from delivery of care. So he is a senior medical director at Optum, has been for a number of years, and really has sunk his teeth into the data analytics and clinical care pathways that support providers in delivering optimal care. So really transformed his career. And then lastly, we have sort of the more traditional route. We have clinical folks who start as, for example, a chief of department of a particular department at a hospital, like a department of emergency medicine. And that particular graduate is now the chief medical officer of a hospital. So great opportunities for clinicians to advance in management roles, either through pivoting to different areas of healthcare or continuing that clinical leadership role. All right, so in the non-clinical space, we have folks that come from a wide variety of sectors in healthcare. So one person who was a senior vice president, kind of director of finance, used his critical challenge project to launch a brand new company and called Blood Buy, and it's really transformed the way that blood products and blood is supplied in a large region of the United States. So very interesting company, but was able to pivot his career really from a finance career to an operational product delivery network. Really interesting. We had someone who was in the pharma industry, was really focused on technical operations and efficiency in the pharmaceutical company that he worked for, and now he is the CEO of Aprecia Pharmaceuticals. We have someone on the also on the pharma side of things who was a director of global strategic sourcing at a large pharmaceutical company and now is executive director of CMC procurement, so sort of global procurement for a large vaccine company. So I'm just going to leave it at that. As folks might be coming from the consulting industry, and we've had a couple of folks advance there as well. So, in a variety of different ways, they either leave their consulting role and go on to something else, or in different leadership roles, or they advance within consulting. So, if they started as a managing consultant, they're now a director of consulting. So, there's a sort of a trajectory, a hierarchy of how folks advance in the consulting world, and they're certainly doing that. And we have one student who was a senior consultant who has now moved to a consulting company called Lumeris, and he is the chief revenue officer for Lumeris. And then on the operational side, sort of the real nuts and bolts delivery side of healthcare, we had one student who was the chief operating officer of a single federally qualified health center, which is, maybe serves 10,000 patients. And she finished up her career as chief operating officer at Advent Health, Well 65 Plus, which so that was their 65 plus population for all of the state of Florida. So, much more significant role and work that she was doing. And finally, we have an alum from California who served as a senior director for revenue integrity across a number of hospitals in Southern California. And she's now a division vice president at that same organization, responsible for all population health operations across that region or that division of her company. So, some really exciting things. And if there are other sectors that people want to hear about in terms of how people have advanced, happy to give examples. But you might say to yourself, Sandy, I am sort of at that early to mid-career state, and I'm not quite at where some of those folks started the program. So I'd like to point out some folks who have advanced in their careers from their early to mid-career positions. So folks who were a director, he was a director of nursing informatics and performance improvement at a health system on Long Island, and he is now the vice president for ambulatory and business development at that institution. We've had folks in the pharma industry who were, in specific market segments for commercial marketing, now being a global marketing director. We've had folks who are sort of a single health system administrator for quality accreditation and compliance, is now chief operating officer. And lastly, a good example is someone who was a manager of provider operations and is now a program director for value-based care, and that would be at a health insurer. So some people use the program to advance their careers in a number of different ways. So I think we have some high-level numbers about how the program provides a return on investment, and we have specific case examples of folks of what happens to students after they leave the program. So now that I have whet your appetite, I'm going to tell you some more. Tell me more. I'm going to go over the program structure, a little bit more about the curriculum, our faculty, and really talk some more about the value and impact of the program. and the Critical Challenge Project, which is sort of a capstone requirement that helps you pull everything together and demonstrate that your new capabilities to employers and folks like that who can help you advance in your career. All right. So, in a snapshot, we really try to take the best of healthcare knowledge, business knowledge and skills, and leadership knowledge and skills to really help drive strategic decision makers that are going to drive value and positive change in their organizations, regardless of where they sit in the healthcare ecosystem of the wide variety of sectors that work in healthcare. This is a one-year curriculum, so you attend for 3 continuous semesters. You can start either in the summer or in the fall. And all of our courses are healthcare focused. So you're not going to take a marketing class that is just general marketing principles. It's all the information that's presented, the cases, the discussions are all healthcare specific. So let's first talk about these bigger boxes in brown. The other distinction here between the brown and the white boxes is that the brown ones or the darker colored boxes are hybrid courses. And that means some of the content is delivered in our in-person residential sessions, and the remainder of the course content happens in the online setting. So this is really suitable for working professionals who are going to continue to work during the program. So we have these 4 full credit courses: healthcare policy, strategic planning, finance, and leadership and workforce development. We have a number of half credit courses, one being we have healthcare marketing, health economics, health law, and quality improvement. And then we have 2 fully online courses, and that's what the lighter boxes are for. And those are health technology data and analysis and digital health innovation and AI. So those are our half credit courses. And that is all wrapped around by 2 courses that continue throughout the program. First is a critical challenge project where you're going to be building and working on a critical challenge that you want to work on in healthcare and developing and integrating the knowledge and skills that you're developing in the program to come up with an applied solution to that challenge. And then specifically the leadership and professional development course also runs continuously throughout the program and focuses on your individual leadership development. So you get things like a 360 review, you get leadership coaching, you develop your own leadership development plan, and then do some real hands-on activities that help you build skills in the leadership arena. This is all delivered by our world-class faculty, all of whom are practitioners in one way or another. So the folks who teach our classes are not strictly researchers and academics, but they also have a wide variety of roles in the healthcare sector. So for example, down here on the right is John Park. He is a vice president at Amgen in their oncology space and teaches our healthcare marketing course. We have Marie Ganem, who teaches healthcare policy, and she spent 25 years in the Rhode Island State House as an advocate and policy maker in the healthcare space in Rhode Island. So bring some really interesting life experiences to the classroom, and we find that students really like the applied nature of the program and the experience and knowledge that the faculty bring to the program. All right, so as I mentioned, this program is really designed for working professionals, folks who are not going to take time out of their work or career in order to work on this master's degree. So you connect and collaborate with a diverse cohort of peers. We're really looking for folks who come from across the industry in healthcare. So not just physicians or not just uh, hospital administrators, but really folks from all walks of life, if you will, both in the healthcare sector and beyond. It occurs in person and online. So there are 3 residential sessions where you are face to face with your classmates and the faculty in person, getting some of the course work delivered in person, and then the continuous online learning and engagement when you go back home. So it's that really that low residency requirement that caters to your work-life demands. And it's asynchronous, and we really strive to think about very carefully when assignments are due, the cadence of how things run, so that you can plan your life and really plan uh, completion of assignments at times that work best for you. So you know what to expect, and you can fit that work in when you need to. We do not have synchronous class time requirements in terms of you need to be in class from 6 to 7 p.m. Type of thing. Only optional office hours where you're able to continue to engage with faculty in the online space. And even if there is a synchronous activity, it's always recorded and placed online in our course platform so that you can watch it later. All right, so people, we're talking about return on investment. So, what do people say about the value and impact of the program? Oops, wrong direction. We have talked about value, and we're going to talk about the CCP in particular. So these learning outcomes that are over here on the left are really what we espouse, and you can read all about it on our website. But what I thought might be more valuable for all of you is to hear, what do students say is valuable about the program? And they really focus on 3 themes. And I would encourage you to attend one of our alumni chats and listen carefully to them. And I think you will hear these 3 themes come through, but you can hear it directly from them. So the first thing that they tell us that they value about the program is really learning from a wide variety of peers. So the folks who are sitting at your table might be in very different industry segments. Somebody might be from pharma, somebody might be from consulting, somebody runs a surgery unit in a hospital. So just a wide variety of sectors, and you learn as much from those peers as you do from the faculty and the course content. The second thing they tell us that they really value and appreciate about the program is this focus on applied learning from day one. I see so much energy in the on-site sessions because students are so excited to take back to their workplaces what they've been learning. They're energized and excited because when we have conversations in the classroom and online, it's always about how does this apply and impact me as I go back to my workplace responsibilities. So from day one, we're really very much about how can you apply this knowledge and skills. And then lastly is our unique emphasis on leadership development. We really have a defined curriculum, both through coursework and through activities like the Critical Challenge Project, as well as that leadership and professional development course that really place that emphasis on leadership development. So when you're in class and you're talking about complicated issues in healthcare, you're talking about it and you're in the class with the emphasis on what do leaders need to think about and do in terms of making decisions about these critical issues. So you're always sort of looking at healthcare knowledge through that leadership lens. How does this impact leaders in healthcare? So that's what they tell us that they really value about the program. Let's talk about the Critical Challenge Project. So this is your opportunity to put your knowledge into action, to take that knowledge and really go out and apply it coherently and cohesively, holistically across their curriculum. We're looking for students to really integrate everything that they're learning and apply it to a challenge that they want to address. So we ask you early on, even in the application process, to identify a challenge that you want to work on during your time at Brown, that you think is in need of leadership and a solution. And we ask you to focus throughout the program on a practical application. How are you going to solve that challenge, or how are you going to contribute to solving that challenge? And it's really a collaborative effort. So while you're the CEO of your project and you're driving the outcome, it's really a collaborative effort where you get input from your peers, from professional colleagues that you work with, faculty, advisors, alumni, friends of the program. You really have a village in terms of helping you sort through the issues and make the most impact. So, is our program right for you? Let's talk quickly about some of our class profiles. I think you're getting the idea that folks come to the program already with some experience in the healthcare industry in a variety of sectors. And they're coming to the program because they tend to be subject matter experts in one particular area, but they really want to broaden their knowledge, skills, and perspective holistically on healthcare so that they can have greater career growth and industry impact. They want to engage and expand their networks. And that's one of the really exciting things about the residential sessions is that you really get to spend time with people, get to know them, and engage deeply with folks across healthcare. And lastly, it really caters to folks who need that flexible learning format. You're not going to quit your job and come to school for a year. So really cater to folks who want that flexible learning format. So we have students that have come from across the United States all the way to Alaska, Puerto Rico. We are starting to have more international students, which is exciting. And they bring a whole another experience and vantage point to the classroom. We keep the cohorts to about 30 to 40 students per intake, and that varies from class to class. In general, for the map above really shows all the states that students have come from across the years. But in general, students represent about 15 or so different states or countries that they are coming into the program with. We so far have been able to achieve about 50-50 ratio of men to women in the program. And importantly, about 2/3 already hold some type of advanced degree. Now, that's not required, but you will find that students have an MBA already, or they have a JD, or they have an MD, or other type of clinical degree. And so they're coming to the program with some advanced skills and knowledge already, and are looking to further that knowledge. Now, again, that's not a requirement of the program. So the requirement is a bachelor's degree. We're approaching about 50% students of color, so that's another aspect in terms of learning from folks with different perspectives and lived experiences, and so we really want to keep that going. And in general, they have about 8 to 10 years of work experience, but that again is not a requirement. We're looking for a minimum of 2 years of work experience. But when you start to look at the actual class, on average, they have about 8 to 10 years of experience. So the application requirements are pretty straightforward. There's an application form and fee. For those of you who are attending this webinar live, your application fee will automatically be waived when you go to submit your application. So that's good news and good to know. You submit a personal statement that addresses why you're interested in the program and what you hope to get out of it and how you can contribute to the richness of the classroom experience. We want you to submit that critical challenge statement in terms of the topic that you would like to work on. We need 3 letters of recommendation, and we recommend that you put those names into the application as soon as you know who they are, preferably very early in the process, because we find that takes the longest in terms of getting to a complete application. We need your resume or CV, and we need official transcripts from undergraduate degrees onward. So during the application process, we are able to accept unofficial transcripts. Should you be accepted and decide to attend Brown, you will be required to submit official transcripts. So unofficial transcripts for the application process, and then official transcripts for attendance at Brown. So we do not require any testing like the GRE or GMAT, any sort of aptitude testing. If you are an international student and you you earned your bachelor's degree in a language that was not English, you will be required to submit language testing. So that would be the only situation where testing would be required. So what does the process look like? Once all of your materials are submitted, including those recommendations from folks that you are asking to submit recommendations, candidates are selected for interviews, which is a video teleconference. And then we meet very regularly. This is a rolling admissions process. So, sort of the sooner you apply, the more likely you are to get in. Applicants receive their admission decision within 6 weeks. It's usually much quicker than that, 1 to 2 weeks. In order to secure your spot in the cohort, there is a $1,500 non-refundable deposit that you need to put down, but those dollars are put towards your tuition. So it's not like that money disappears. And then any scholarship consideration or things that we're able to offer you as merit-based scholarships are communicated along at the same time as the admission decision. So this is a rolling process. So anytime that you complete and submit your application, we will start to look at it. And our final deadline for attending this summer is coming up soon, March 1st. There's still time to submit your application, so please get those applications in. And then our application deadline for the fall to start in September would be June 1st. So in summary, there are 3 residential sessions in Providence at the beginning of each of those academic semesters. You meet your classmates and faculty in person. The remainder of the coursework is delivered online. You are a full member of the Brown community and participate in all activities and exciting things here at Brown, such as the Van Wickle Gates that are pictured here, which are a big part of our commencement ceremonies. There are 2 enrollment options, summer and fall. And it's 1 year to degree or 3 semesters from May to May or September to September. And you are invited back to Brown at the most appropriate time after you've completed the program to attend Brown's commencement activities, which happen once per year. All right, so let's turn to Q&A. I'm going to ask my colleague Emma to back on the screen, and she's been monitoring the Q&A section, so she'll give us a sense of the questions.
Yes. So our first question in here, what are the benefits of the hybrid program rather than all online or all in person?
Yes, so we talked about diversity of the folks who are in the program. We really feel strongly that having some time in person, both with faculty and your peers, that you're going to be learning alongside in the online space is really best done when you first meet up with folks in person, engage with them, do classwork with them, establish those relationships and that rapport. And then when you go to the online space, it's a much more rich conversation. When you're responding to someone's discussion post, you know who you're talking to. It's not just a name on the screen. And you can really develop some terrific relationships that way. And so we find that the connections are stronger as well as the learning is deeper when we engage in this hybrid format.
Thank you. Our next question in here, how many years has the program been around and how large is the alumni base?
So we are this summer we'll be enrolling our 13th group of students, Lucky 13. And we have had 12 groups of students come through that beforehand. And as I mentioned earlier, there are more than 200 alumni of the program out in the world doing amazing things.
Thank you. Our next question in here is asking about what the tuition fees are. Also going to send them a direct link to our last financing.
Actually, yes, absolutely. So there are lots of ways that people are able to finance their education, and we do a webinar specific to that. So I encourage you to check that out. The tuition has just been posted for this upcoming June. It needed to be approved by Brown's Corporation, and it is a little over. It's almost 75,000, so it's 74 something and change. So it has gone up just a little bit and around I think 70, 74, 570 is an odd number because of the percentage increases, but that's the tuition and that's the tuition for the full year. It doesn't include travel, it doesn't include any of your um, hotel or arrangements during the residential sessions. So you're responsible for those travel expenses and things like that. Uh, However, we do during that residential session, because we keep you in class all day, we do provide breakfast and lunch while you are here in session.
Thank you. Our next question. How many hours a week should I expect to be working on coursework? And is this course schedule compatible with either a 9 to 5 or a healthcare work schedule?
Absolutely. So again, we have a diverse set of students, and they've all been able to manage working it out in terms of finding times that work for them. So we estimate that it's anywhere from 22 to 24 hours a week when you are in the online space. So you can plan on however that works best for you. If you want to kind of get everything done on the weekend because you're really busy during the week, or just do some readings on things, or we've had students do it both ways, and we have had folks who are trauma surgeons who are on call. We've had OBGYNs who are on call, or ED physicians who are doing night shifts and things like that, and they've all been able to uh, um, work with the curriculum and the environment in ways that they can make it work with their own work schedule.
Thank you. It looks like we're wrapping up our questions here, so I'm going to put in a last call for anybody to insert any questions they may have into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Um, but what kind of experience are you looking for in program candidates? How much? And if any, what industries besides healthcare do students typically come from?
Hmm. So that was a lot in one question. So see if I can remember all that. So what we're looking for is some type of leadership experience. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with a management title per se, but we're looking for evidence that you have contributed to leadership in some way in your organizations. We have had folks who are healthcare attorneys. We have folks who come from consulting, and so they might be in healthcare consulting, but they might be more technology consulting, but healthcare related. And so they're looking to get more knowledge and understanding of the entire healthcare industry. We have had people who are patient advocates. So folks who are, you might say, they're recipients of the healthcare system, or they're trying to navigate the healthcare system, but their day job might be something completely different, and they're really wanting to, in order to be better patient advocates, they want to seek that broader knowledge of the healthcare system.
Thank you. And our last question here, what are the most important factors you look at when reviewing an application?
So we look at the sort of the sum total of everyone's experience. You've had your undergraduate experience. You may have had degree experiences beyond that. We look at your work experience and work advancement in terms of what types of roles have you taken on. Again, we're looking for diversity of sector representation. So if you represent sort of an unusual niche area of pharma or clinical trials management, or operations. It could be a wide variety of things. And so we're looking at folks holistically in terms of what skills and experiences can they bring and contribute to the program.
Thank you. And it looks like that was our last question.
Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate everyone attending today. There are more information sessions that are specific to other aspects of the program. We do a deep dive on the Critical Challenge Project, a little more deep dive on the curriculum. So those are available. So please feel free to reach out to us by phone, looking at the website, or by emailing directly to professional@brown.edu. And we encourage you to stay connected with us and certainly look forward to your applications to the program. Thank you, everyone, for joining today.